The man suspected of mass murder in that horrific Colorado movie Rampage made his first public appearance in court. With new details emerging about who he really is, his bizarre demeanor today adds another piece to a disturbing puzzle. How could a quiet young man described as a promising student end up on a path that led to the carnage of last Friday night? Here's ABC's David Wright.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Please be seated.
He may think of himself as the Joker, but today in court, James Egan Holmes wasn't smiling, and he didn't speak a word.
Given the nature of the charges, you are currently being held on a no-bond hold.
What's happening? Oh, my God.
Accused of a diabolical plan of mass murder. A shooting rampage in a crowded movie theater. A plot that almost seems ripped from the pages of a Dark Knight comic book. If convicted, Holmes could face the death penalty.
The death penalty decision has to be made within 60 days of the arraignment. Okay. So it is months down the line still.
In comic book stories, the quest for justice boils down to a conflict between good and evil, and good almost always prevails. A court of law is trickier than that. Hard to imagine the Joker being tried by a jury of his peers, and yet today that shock orange hair was impossible to ignore.
He looked like someone who didn't know what was going on. And that leads to all sorts of important and fascinating legal questions about his mental state.
There's no question the guy in that courtroom bore little resemblance to his own secret identity.
His goals are to become a researcher and to make scientific discoveries.
The mild-mannered kid seen at this high school summer camp.
In personal life, he enjoys playing soccer and strategy games, and his dream is to own a Slurpee machine.
A video from 6 years ago obtained exclusively by ABC News.
Hi, hello, I'm James.
His childhood friends never saw this coming.
I fondly remember him as a very, very lighthearted guy, if not a little quiet.
As recently as 6 weeks ago, Holmes' science career still seemed to be on track. A PhD candidate in an elite neuroscience program with a grant to pay his tuition plus $26,000 a year living expenses. At the beginning of June, he took an oral exam on neuroscience, then abruptly dropped out. No explanation.
It's very unusual for a student to withdraw from a program.
But Aurora police psychologist John Nicoletti says the evidence so far does not point to a sudden break with reality.
He didn't snap in terms of his stockpiling of the armament inventory and the setting up of the booby trap. There was a lot of thought, so this is what we would call a proactive attack behavior.
This was premeditated?
Premeditated, yeah.
He thought it through?
Thought it through, planned it, had weapons of choice.
Even before Holmes dropped out of his program, he was already buying guns at local gun shops, 4 of them in all. Over the internet, he stockpiled 6,000 rounds of ammunition, plus high-capacity magazines.
How many thousands of rounds of ammunition do you need to buy before it raises the alarm bell?
Yeah, should be a concern.
The government is concerned about how much Sudafed you buy, only 9 grams a month, because it can be used to make methamphetamine. The government's concerned about how much fertilizer you buy, considering strict limits and controls because of Oklahoma City and the bomb that brought down a federal office building. Yet apparently, you can buy as much ammunition as you want.
It raises the alarm bell.
You always hope, like in these situations.
And what about all that protective equipment, the full suit of body armor, and the gas mask he allegedly wore into the theater?
Do you think he meant to die?
He didn't act like he meant to die.
How so?
Well, he has enough protective gear, and then he surrenders right away. I mean, if you look at a lot of the workplace shootings like the ones we had here with Columbine and Platte Canyon and some of the others, the person kills themselves if they can't get out.
One theory that he wanted to live to see the second act of the plot unfold. All those booby traps that police say were designed to kill anyone who stepped inside his apartment, including an IED by the door, rigged with a waist-high tripwire. Authorities say it was composed of 2 liquids which, if combined, would have ignited.
It was certainly a sophisticated device.
The living room floor covered with 30 potential bombs, each connected to a control panel in the kitchen by a spaghetti-like jumble of wires. Holmes could have easily learned from the internet how to build such things, but it's curious to note, police say he left almost no digital footprint of any kind. Once police safely defused the bombs, they carted away his computer as evidence.
It seems the insanity defense is almost the only defense that he could pursue. But it's a hard defense to win. You have to be able to show you didn't understand what you were doing was wrong. This is a guy who is dressed up as the Joker, a villain, who's going to say, I didn't understand that what I was doing was wrong. That's not going to be easy.
Last night, the president was here to pay his respects to survivors and the families of the dead. Pointedly, he did not mention the alleged perpetrator by name.
The perpetrator of this evil act has received a lot of attention over the last couple of days. That attention will fade away.
Also, he made no mention of gun control. This is an election year, after all, and Colorado is a battleground state. Earlier this year, Forbes named Aurora, Colorado, the 9th safest city in America. Now, like Columbine 13 miles away, it'll forever be known as the scene of mass murder. I'm David Wright for Nightline in Aurora, Colorado.
With so much to consider, our thanks to David Wright.